Hello and welcome to the 2021 New Substitute Training video. My name is Mary McClanahan. I am a substitute coordinator for Farmington Municipal Schools, and I am very happy to have you joining me today. We have a lot of information to go over, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. First of all, I want to thank you very much for your interest in becoming a substitute. This year has provided many challenges for the district to try and overcome, and hiring substitutes has been, in and of itself, a difficulty as well. So, first of all, we're going to go over COVID safe practices and what to expect when you go into a school. And then we're going to talk about what the actual teaching expectations of the substitutes are in Farmington schools. Now, after you watch this presentation, you're going to email me and I am going to set you up for your 3.5 hours of observations in one of our elementaries. Now, not only is this required for your license as a substitute, but you do need to see how the schools are handling these COVID safe practices. So that 3.5 hours is going to be scheduled in the morning so that you can see how the kids are brought in, and then also how meal times are handled, and then just how the day goes, because it's very different than what we're used to. Lots of emphasis on the kids keeping their hands sanitized and then staying socially distanced. So I will get you set up for that appointment. So I do ask that you have some flexibility in that, because I'm only able to schedule so many subs per day per week in our elementary schools. Now, because we are doing so much remote, including hiring, we are asking that you please be able to handle technology and navigating the web. You will be required to fill out your online forms using one of our platforms. Okay, I don't have paper packets anymore, so you do have to be comfortable with navigating online forms to fill out. You will be required to use a staff email account to stay current with all district communications. You will have to watch videos as part of your training as well that you will do online. And then you will also need to be able to manage your substitute profile via a smartphone or a tablet or computer. So technology, internet, the skills needed to handle all of those assignments are very, very important for being a substitute with Farmington Schools. Now, as far as the actual environment in a school, I am going to ask you all to please be patient and empathetic. The staff and the students are very frazzled right now, going back and forth between in-person and virtual. Just the uncertainty, it's causing a lot of frayed nerves right now. So I would ask that you please be patient with our staff and with our students, and just kind of roll with it and be flexible and kind of just take one day at a time. The state health orders issued by the state of New Mexico really can change overnight. We have no control over those orders, but of course we do have to enforce whatever that order is containing. So if we have to suspend in-person learning, whether it's at a school or the entire district, please keep in mind that that means that substitutes would not have an opportunity to work if we go back to a virtual environment. Okay. Now, as for what's on schedule now, pre-K through 5, and then special education pre-K through 12 are allowed to engage in in-person learning in specific situations. Now, I'm not going to issue a hard and fast rule that you have to be comfortable with special education, but I am going to ask you to please have an open mind with that. The situations arise where we need coverage in classrooms pretty quickly, especially if the teacher maybe needs to quarantine. We need someone that is willing to just jump in and take that class. So please, as you begin your onboarding process, really think about what areas you're going to be willing to sub in. Now, Mondays, of course, there is no opportunities to sub because that is independent learning for the kiddos at home, and then the staff is going to be engaged in professional development. Tuesday through Friday is going to be your opportunities to get in there and to sub. Now, as far as what to expect with the classrooms, they do look a lot different than what we're used to now. We had to maximize space because we are limited on our capacity that we're allowed to have in a building at one time, as well as how many kids we can have in each classroom. There's going to be a lot of different things that you see in the school that you may have never seen before or may not be used to. But there shouldn't be any more than 15 kiddos in a classroom. Most of the time, the classrooms are going to be set up with all of them facing one direction with that 6 feet of distancing between the desks. Okay, so the furniture will need to stay where it is because that was all, looked at very carefully when we opened up the first time. We've had to remove furniture, some activities that we're used to, especially in a K-5 setting, whether it's, taking the kids off in different corners of the room and doing reading or math, working on exercises. Those types of things are not going to be allowed because we cannot maintain that 6 feet of social distancing with the kids if they're in those small spaces. So just keep that in mind, especially as you go from day to day with different activities. Now, of course, there's always some exceptions in instances in pre-K and kindergarten where they don't really have the furniture to where the kiddos can sit, separately. You may see some instances where they're at one table if they can maintain an adequate distance between each other or maybe have a barrier between them. But the goal is, of course, 6 feet of distance or greater between the students. If there's any changes to that or any kind of exceptions to the rules, administration will be making those decisions. Otherwise, just do your best to enforce that 6 feet of social distance. Now, the teachers, and by extension, the substitutes that fill in for them, are responsible for making sure their classes are sanitized regularly throughout the day. Okay, and we make sure that you have the bottles of sanitizing liquid and the paper towels there in the classroom that can be refreshed by the custodians whenever you need, basically, because we want to make sure that everything gets wiped down as regularly as possible to keep everybody safe. Now, in the instance that maybe there is a space that is exposed to a COVID-19 positive individual, there is a set of rules in place for how to handle that. It'll be closed off for 48 hours and then it'll be fogged. Okay, so that the disinfectant does get into all areas, and then it will dry for a specific amount of time before it is allowed to be used again. So we're taking that very seriously. So all of the areas that have been exposed, you do not have to worry about because we are making sure that those are sanitized before they are opened up again. Now, every employee and every student is screened. Okay, now the staff that are on current contracts and the students use a self-screening app called Ruvna. So you will hear that word often in reference to self-screening. Now, because the substitutes work, a flexible, at-will, on-call schedule, you will actually be screened upon your arrival at the school by either the nurse or the health aide. So you'll have a series of questions that you are asked, and you will also have to have your temperature taken, and you will have to answer these questions as truthfully as possible, okay? Because if you have two or more of these symptoms that are listed here in bold, you cannot come to work. Okay, and it's very, very important that you stay home if you do not feel well. We would much rather have to maybe, cover a class internally than have you come in and maybe get more sick. We would not want that to happen to you. And then, of course, as a substitute, you're in lots of different schools throughout the week. So, say, for example, you decide to just, soldier on and you come to work, then you've actually exposed up to 4 different locations in one week. So, it is very, very important that you're honest with yourself on your symptoms. And if you do not feel well, you need to stay home. Now, something else as well is we are required to enforce the travel mandate. Okay, so if you travel outside of the state to a state that is on the quote red list that the New Mexico Department of Health has, then you do have to quarantine for 14 days when you come back. You cannot work after you come back. So it is absolutely, up to you if you'd like to travel, but keep in mind that you cannot accept a job until you have quarantined for 14 days after you return to the state. As far as face masks and or face shields, masks are required for the students and staff. Now, of course, eating, drinking, exercising, those activities, of course, it would not be enforced. But other than that, they need to cover the mouth and the nose at all times. Okay, and face shields can be used, but only in addition to a mask. You cannot wear a face shield instead of a mask. Okay, so please keep that in mind. And this is not an option for the students. So if you have a student that is refusing to comply or using, you know, not wanting to wear their face mask as a way to disrupt the class, or perhaps, tease another student, those types of things, you really need to bring in the administration in your building, or maybe have a teacher from next door come in. Get help with those situations, because we cannot have students refusing to comply with this mandate. Okay, the wearing of masks, the social distancing is this is what's going to help us to get everybody back in school, okay? Because we need our positivity rate to go back down. So wearing the mask is not an option, and if you have a disruptive student, please, please, please bring in administration, because that is not something that you should have to deal with on your own, and it is very, very important that they comply. Now, how we're handling food service this year to maximize safety, and to limit any kind of contamination is basically a grab and go situation. Okay, so for breakfast, it's going to be a cafeteria style service. The social distancing in the lines, of course, will make sure that the kiddos are staying as far apart as they need to when they're in line. Grab and go with the meals, take it back to the classroom or to the playground to be eaten. Okay, and it's a situation similar to that for lunch. They'll go through cafeteria style with closed containers, grab and go situation, and then they'll be eaten in the classroom or on the playground. Now, of course, we're emphasizing with the students to make sure and use those hand sanitizing stations as much as possible, especially before and after they've eaten, coming back into the school after recess, all those types of situations. Now, just because we have the kids eating in the classrooms does not mean you have to stay with them. You are still entitled to your 30-minute lunch break. So we do have those floating lunch monitors for you in the schools to cover your classroom so that you can go ahead and take your lunch break. And you are absolutely welcome to leave campus to have your meal or to pick up something, but please keep in mind that we are not allowing outside food deliveries to the schools, because we do not want outside folks coming into our lobbies or in our office areas. So just keep that in mind, okay? If you need to go buy lunch, you will have to go get it and bring it back, okay? Now, we have a situation now to where we have nursing staff and health aides in all of our elementary settings. So they've then taken their areas where they would normally treat kiddos and have spaces devoted to the two separate categories. So kiddos that they're not, exhibiting symptoms, so, your bloody noses, your skin knees, those types of services will be performed in one area, and then any kind of kiddo that's exhibiting symptoms with COVID-19, there's actually areas to put those kiddos so that they are not exposed to anybody else while the parents are contacted. Now, nurses are also being able to come to the classrooms to take care of kiddos if a situation arises. There again to cut down on the kiddos leaving the classroom or wandering through the hallways, those types of things. So nursing staff will actually come to you in the classroom situation. Now, whenever you have a situation where you feel like a kiddo is exhibiting symptoms, it is very important to stay calm, of course, okay? And you'll want to inform the staff, the office staff, or the nursing staff on the intercom or the radio that you have a kiddo that needs attention. Okay, and then that nursing staff member will let you know how to send the kiddo to them or if they will come to you. And then, of course, again, please stay calm if you have a kiddo that needs attention. So then the question always arises, well, what if I'm exposed, whether it's by a student or a staff member? We will notify you if you have been exposed and give you the instructions needed in order to handle that situation. Now, we can't tell you necessarily all the details of your exposure, but you will be given the most important pieces of information. Okay, you do have to quarantine for the mandated time if instructed by administration, and there are arrangements in place for you to recoup some missed wages if you do have to quarantine because of an exposure at school. Now, if you're exposed outside of school and you do have to test, you cannot come to school to work while waiting for test results. You must stay away from the schools if you are awaiting test results, okay? Because it's very, very important that if that test comes back positive, then we have to go back and quarantine all the areas where you might have been. Okay, and there again, if you do test positive, you do need to notify administration because we do have to report certain exposures to the New Mexico Department of Health and also to the New Mexico Public Education Department. Okay. Now, because some staff may need to quarantine for long periods of time, keep in mind that there may be opportunities for you to take jobs that may be more than just a couple days. Some of them may be the full 2 weeks. So, if you are willing to do that, that would be great. Multiple day jobs would come up because of quarantining issues. Now, again, COVID has provided a challenge as far as specialty classes, so music, shop, PE. Those classes have been difficult to hold because of the space available and the number of students. So you'll want to check with your secretary when you check in the morning on how they are handling those classes. Some of the schools are bigger, some of them have more space available to be able to go ahead and hold these types of activities. So they will let you know if you do need to plan on your kiddos, transitioning to a music or a shop or a PE class. And bus duty is also very different this year. When classes dismissed, they're trying to cut down on large groups of kids moving towards the buses. So there's a more organized way that that is being done. So we ask you to please pay attention to those instructions at the different schools that you may be subbing at and asking how that is being handled. Now, because of the central office being home to a very large number of employees. We are currently closed, and a lot of our staff members are working remotely that work in the central office. So, if you need to see someone, you will need to make an appointment. So, the building won't be just open for people to just walk in if you need something. So you can either call the person directly, okay, call the main phone number and leave a message, or use your staff email to email that staff member. So maybe you need to contact payroll or you need to contact me. Just contact us via email and then we will help you. And if it's something that you do need to come into the office to take care of, then we'll make an appointment for you to come in. On that note, on your email, please keep in mind that we use email, I would say, 99% of the time to keep everybody updated with what's happening in the school. So I wouldn't say that you'd have to check it every day, but I would ask you to keep up with your emails. Now you will see emails that are sent to basically all staff, like just, information pieces, whether it's for licensing or different training opportunities. Those that are sent to all the staff, if they don't pertain to you as a substitute, then you do not have to keep track of those. You can disregard them. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second half of our presentation. That's basically the expectations of a substitute teacher that FMS does have. So as a substitute, it is your responsibility to keep the kiddos on track as best you can with the teacher's lesson plans. Most of the teachers have a specific set of substitute plans that they have. In cases of emergency, they'll have a set of plans or they'll leave their plans for you in the room. If you cannot find them, please contact either the front office or maybe ask one of the teachers next door for help in locating those lesson plans. Now, with our new substitute system, some of the teachers actually upload the lesson plans to their job assignment. So when you're looking for jobs or when you're checking your jobs that you have coming up in the future and you see a little paperclip on there, there is a possibility that they have uploaded their lesson plan for you to look at prior to your assignment. Now, if you cannot find anything, the teacher next door can't find anything, please don't panic at all. We will make sure you have an activity. Okay, so we will never expect you to wing it. We will never expect you to just figure it out. We'll make sure that you have a lesson plan. And of course, you would want to be as positive as possible when it comes to the lesson plans, really keeping the students engaged and energized. I will say that right now they are pretty excited to be back in the classroom and pretty excited to get back into some sense of normality. So try to stay excited about whatever activity that you've been given. Of course, supervising those kiddos at all times. We don't want anybody wandering around, especially right now with COVID. So make sure that you know where everybody's at. If you have to escort them back and forth between music or PE, different things like that, keep track of everyone. And I would also ask you to keep good notes for the teacher as well, whether it's an issue or if it's positive information. A lot of times, the positive feedback that a teacher will get from a substitute will really help them in choosing a substitute for future jobs. The system that we use does have the option for a teacher to actually request a specific substitute. So, if you had a good experience in a classroom, definitely leave that information for the teacher and tell them that you enjoyed working in their room and that you'd be happy to help them in the future. You can even leave your phone number. I have substitutes that will buy like business cards online, just a real, cheap set like 500 with their phone number and their school email on there, and tell the teachers, contact me anytime for prearranged jobs. And that will really help as far as it goes for you to really stay busy with working for the schools. Now, in Farmington schools, we have kind of an odd rule that a lot of people kind of scratch their head at, but substitutes are not allowed to show DVDs when they are the only adult in the room. This goes back to an old court case that we had oh my goodness, I'm going to say 20 to 25 years ago with a substitute that was showing movies with the kiddos. So you do need to be provided with an alternate activity if for some reason your lesson plan includes watching a movie or a DVD. We do warn the staff or remind the staff that they do need to keep those types of activities out of the substitute lesson plans. But of course, if that happens, you can ask the office or teacher next door for a different activity. And again, this is for your safety as much as it is for the students. Now, substituting in general can be difficult in a normal atmosphere, especially with the kiddos. Everybody makes jokes about trying to, get the substitute's goat or trying to see if they can get you to lose your temper. And then in this situation with COVID, it can sometimes just be magnified. So, in these instances where you do have maybe a difficult student or students causing a disruption or just a rough day, because it can happen with kiddos, please try your best not to touch a kiddo, whether it's, to stop them from tapping their pencil or they're not moving in line fast enough, they're not staying in line. A large majority of the complaints or the disciplinary actions that I have to take care of relate to a substitute putting their hands on a kiddo. So please try not to slip and let that happen, okay? Try not to let them, get you to lose your temper either. As the adult in the room, you really do have the control over what that situation becomes. All right. A lot of times a substitute will, answer back to a kiddo that's being cantankerous with a sarcastic comment or a negative comment to try to make a point. But more often than not, when that gets repeated at home, unfortunately, that sarcastic tone gets left off of that comment, and then a parent calls asking why a substitute has been allowed to speak to their child in such a way. And again, if you find yourself having a specific issue in a classroom with a kiddo that's just causing a disruption, please ask for help, from another teacher or from the office. We don't expect you to deal with these situations on your own, okay? Please ask for help if you have a kiddo that's just causing a serious issue or a group of kiddos, or if you just need help, you need a breather, okay? We don't want you to have a difficult day. Now, something that we have had issues with in the past has been substitutes being drawn into conversations on controversial subjects. Now, K through 5, you're not going to see this as much as you will in middle school and high school. But, they ask you a question about an election. They ask you a question on who you voted for. They ask your opinion on the Capitol riots. They ask your opinion on the riots on the West Coast. These types of subjects, we don't need to be talking about in school. We need to stick to the lesson plans, draw the kids back on track, draw them back to the lesson, and don't be tempted to offer an opinion on these particular current events. Because there again, we'll get calls from parents wanting to know why these subjects are being talked about and how they don't appreciate these opinions being used. So it's just better to just not even go there when it comes to controversial topics. There's also a temptation often that I see in subbing to be the cool, fun sub. Okay, trying to get down on their level and, trying to interact with them. But more often than not, when you don't allow yourself to be the adult in the room, specific behaviors can often lead to you getting into trouble. So, as you can see from this slide, I've included these bullet points because they have happened in the past. Okay, whether it's a rap off, a twerking contest, okay, or wanting to do an ugly duckling makeover on a student, so you meet them at the mall and buy them makeup and clothes. These types of things have happened in the past and are extremely inappropriate, so we would ask you to please resist the urge to be that cool with it substitute. You're not their friend, you are their sub, and you are the adult in the room. Okay. Now, as far as, bringing in food or bringing, giving medications out to students, like say, for example, somebody says they have a headache and they ask if you have any Tylenol. Those instances, you would never, ever, ever do that. Okay. Send them to the nurse, call the nurse over the intercom, see what they want you to do. Food, of course, with COVID, that's a huge no-no, but even prior to COVID, we have students with allergies. We have students with religious affiliations that won't allow them to do certain things. So it's just better to not go there, okay, with the kiddos. If you want to try to come up with an award system for when the kiddos do a good job, there are some substitutes who give out stickers, those types of things. It doesn't always have to be like a piece of candy or anything like that. In fact, if you find yourself in a room where the teacher actually uses that as a reward system, if they get X number of stars on the chart, then they get a piece of candy. I would go ahead and tell the kiddos that you're going to make a note that they earned their reward for that day, and you're going to let the teacher give it to them the next day. Okay? Just to keep it all consistent with you going from school to school and not getting into any kind of situation as far as giving kids candy or food or anything like that that they shouldn't have. Now, the bottom of this slide, this is something that a substitute who taught for us for, I'm going to say, close to 25 years. She felt that it was very important to greet the students as they come in the door and introduce yourself to the teachers around you. For her, it set the tone for the entire day. The students knew who was in charge. They knew that you were in charge of that room. You're welcoming them to your home, basically, as that classroom. And then, of course, introducing yourself to the teachers around you, you know who to go to if you have an issue. And it really does set the tone for the entire day. Now, our school is extremely fortunate to have great technology for our kiddos. Even the pre-K students have access to iPads. Okay, so the higher grades, they're going to get a laptop. The lower grades generally have a netbook or a laptop, and then the pre-K kids have an iPad, which is amazing because when we are in a situation where we're going back and forth between regular and virtual, they can stay on track and still have contact with their class and their teacher over Zoom classes. Now, when you are in charge of making sure they are completing their activities in an in-person setting, we certainly do not expect you to know what is on everybody's screen at all times. But to keep the kiddos on their feet, so to say, and make sure that they are not on sites where they shouldn't be on, or maybe on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever the case may be, it's really good to get up and move around the classroom. When that kiddo doesn't know when you could possibly pop up behind them, they are less apt to get off task and get onto websites maybe that they shouldn't be on for that moment. Now, on the flip side, of technology, most of our kiddos do have cell phones these days, even in the lower grades. Do not take a cell phone away from a kiddo under any circumstances. You are now in possession of that $900, $1,000 cell phone if you were to do that. And if something happens to that cell phone, the district is then responsible for that $1,000 piece of technology. And let's face it, sometimes there can be not so good things on a cell phone, whether it's pictures or content. And if that is now in your possession, you are in possession of that inappropriate content. So if a kiddo is causing a disruption with a cell phone, the best thing to do is warn them a couple times. Not make it a big deal because ultimately they're wanting to cause a disruption, right? They're wanting to try to take away from the lesson. Warn them, do your best to ignore them. If it accelerates into something that is just truly disrupting the entire class, then go ahead and bring in administration. But do not take their phone away. More often than not, just ignoring them is the best way to deal with it. Now, for you on your personal cell phones, do not take pictures of kids. Do not take videos of the students for any reason. Whether you think they had a neat hairdo or a cute outfit, or you want to post on your social media account what you did that day, even if it's anonymous, it is unacceptable to post pictures of a child on the internet that is not your child, that you do not have permission to do so. We have had instances in the past where substitutes have taken a video of, say, for example, they're subbing for the music class and they take a video of the kids playing their instruments and they posted it on their YouTube channel. Yes, it was anonymous. There was no way for anybody to know who those kids were or where they were at, but it still is not appropriate. And that type of activity will lead to disciplinary action up to termination. Now, as far as your cell phone, using it in the classroom or maybe a tablet, we want you to keep a cell phone on you because of emergency purposes, whether it's for a lockdown purpose or you need to contact the office and you don't have access to an intercom or a radio. We want you to have your phone on you so that you can contact administration or the front office for help. But it's also valuable in helping with a class as well. If you need to look up a piece of information, sometimes the kiddos are using a specific app or program on their cell phones, or on their computers or their laptops, and you can pull out your cell phone and follow along. So those types of situations are fine, but I will tell you that if a principal passed by a room and you're just sitting up at the front of the desk on your phone and not engaging with the kids, that will cause a problem for you. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so our substitute system is called Frontline Absence Management, and I will go over the specifics of the system and how it works when you come in to see me. And I am also going to have a video on how the system can be utilized, how to navigate through it, how to utilize the trainings that are on there as well. There'll be a separate video to watch for that. But in a nutshell, it is 100% automated. Okay, so all of our sub jobs come either through the computer or through the phone. I have the calling times listed for you here, and then again I'll show you how to find those calling times on your profile in Frontline as well. Keep in mind that we encourage the teachers to put their jobs in as soon as they know that they're going to be out. So you may receive calls or emails regarding jobs that are going to be in advance. Okay, so keep that in mind and keep track of the date so that you don't accidentally show up at a school and the job is maybe a week or a month out. Now, as far as the start times go, I do have the elementary and pre-K start times here for you. And then, of course, with the other schools being virtual, that's not an issue right now. If we do get to open up to full 100% school and we have middle school and high school, we can go over the times if you decide you want to work in those areas. Now, substituting by nature is on call at will. Okay, so sometimes things can happen. Maybe jury duty gets canceled for a teacher and they only ended up needing you for an hour and a half. That type of thing happens. We, of course, will compensate you for that hour and a half. But if the teacher is available to come back to school, that, of course, is what we would like to happen. Now, if a job is canceled last minute and you end up reporting to the school and they don't need you, if we don't have a place to send you, maybe another school that has an empty job, you will be compensated. It's called sub show up. Okay, you will be compensated for that time that you took to travel to the school. This slide just goes over the pay rates, and I will have a printout of this particular presentation to give you as well, so you can refer back to it, and the pay rates you can refer back to as well. All of our pay rates are based on education, and then of course licensure credentials as well. Please also keep note of what constitutes a full day of pay and what constitutes a half day of pay. As far as dress code goes, the schools are allowed to establish their own dress code, but because you are a substitute traveling from one location to the next, you can either check with the secretary before you go, or you have some guidelines here that you can take into account. Remember, if it's lower grades, which of course that is what we have right now, is the lower grades that are open. Pre-K through 3, you're going to want to be more casual but professional, especially, comfortable shoes for if you have playground duty. And then, of course, different activities. You may get, a little bit of paint on you or something like that. You would want to make sure that you would dress appropriate for that. Now, the higher grades, you'd probably be safer with more of a business casual look. But again, you can definitely check with the secretaries on these different guidelines that they have at their schools. Now, the entire district, you would want to keep in mind that there are no hats, weapons, tobacco, gang symbols, tattoos that disrupt the educational process, piercings of the nose, lip, eyebrows, because they cause a distraction. Has nothing to do with any kind of moral issue. It is truly because they can be a distraction. Tattoos, we do not require you to cover up your tattoos unless they can be a distraction. There was one situation where a substitute had a sleeve tattoo of all the Disney characters in full color. It was absolutely beautiful, but it was very distracting, especially to the lower grades. So we did have to ask that substitute to cover up that tattoo. So again, it has more to do with distracting the students. Of course, the hats, weapons, tobacco, gang symbols is more of a security issue, but the others are more just to make sure the students stay on task. Now, if you as a substitute run into an issue where a principal is maybe not happy with a performance, or maybe a situation arises at a school and maybe some parents are concerned about performance, the principal does have the freedom to decide if a substitute is a good fit for their building or not. They also have the ability to decide if you're a good fit for a specific grade or not. Kindergarten, pre-K, special education, they have challenges all in themselves. So if a principal decides that that's not a good fit for you, we will go ahead and take those options off of your availability lists. Now, for specific disciplinary issues, if we can't find a resolution, talking to you and talking to the principal, we do have the option to block you from the building. And oftentimes it is just in the substitute's best interest to not go back to a specific building. Now, if you have two schools that decide they don't want you to come back, we will contact you, whether it's via email or written letter, to let you know what the issues are and what we would like you to work on. Okay, and of course, you have the opportunity to respond to those concerns as well. And then we can work on a plan to really take care of the situation so that you can get back to subbing in more than what you have on your list. Now, if a third request is received from a school to take you off of a list, we will go ahead and take you off of the list for the district. Okay. The best way to avoid blocks is, if you know that there was an issue, is to be open, honest, and communicate. Okay. Let me know. Email me and say, I had a really bad day today. I did not keep control of the class. I had, some kiddos that were making it very difficult for me. I lost my temper and I'm concerned that I may get, reported for this. Then I will contact the principal and we'll see what we can do to take care of the situation. Okay. We are always anxious to keep you all on our lists. So just like any other job, we're going to see if we can't take care of the situation, okay, before it gets to the point of you not being able to sub at a specific school or with the district. So you will also be required to view these videos here. Frontline Professional Growth is another product that we use to make sure all of our staff is trained, especially in these mandated areas. Title IX there is actually a sexual harassment between students and staff, and then between staff. That section there you will also watch, just for those of you that are not familiar with Title IX. These will be assigned to you, and you'll receive instructions from HR on how to register for these trainings. You will have a specific amount of time, and I'll go over that with you when you come in to see me. You'll have a specific amount of time to get these finished, okay, so that you can stay on the substitute list. So now that you have completed this particular online tutorial, next is observations. Okay, so you email me and we will go ahead and get you scheduled for your observations. Please do not contact the schools on your own for these. Okay, we've done that in the past, but we're not doing that anymore. After you finish your 3.5 hours, you will be sent a online packet from Frontline Central. So there's another Frontline product that we use. That packet will need to be completed online. There's options for you to upload high school diplomas, transcripts, voided checks for direct deposit information, as well as forms of ID. We will not be passing out paper packets. We don't need extra paper changing hands, especially right now. So you will need to get these packets completed online. Once that's finished, then you schedule your appointment with me. We go over the requirements for having a license from the state of New Mexico for subbing, fingerprinting, and then we'll go over the process for getting you started on your trainings, and then how you start taking jobs. Now, the fee for the New Mexico Public Education Department substitute license is $50. That will be paid debit or credit. You will be required to apply for your license on your own, but I will make sure you have instructions on how to do that online with the state. Electronic fingerprinting, 2 sets of electronic prints are taken. We pay for 1 set that we use to clear you at the district level, and then the other set is for your license application. That, unfortunately, you do have to cover on your own. That fee is $44, debit or credit, and that will be paid at the time of your appointment. Now, all of these fees are non-refundable. However, the substitute license will be good for 3 years, and as long as you do not resign from the district or let that license expire, you will not need to do fingerprints again either. Now, after that appointment is taken care of, you will access your staff email account. Okay, watch the video on how your sub account works. Then you'll get into that account there and set up your profile. And then you'll get your videos watched. Now, I do let you go ahead and sub while you're watching your videos. Okay, you just have to make sure that you get those finished in a specific time frame that we'll go over. So I'm again very appreciative for all of you wanting to sub with the district, especially during these difficult times. And I am available for any questions that you have. Please email me and we'll get you going. And welcome to Farmington Municipal Schools. Thank you.